सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरिः ओम। अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। Dear friends, this is the second class of Taittiriya Upanishad Bhashya. In the last class, we saw a few important topics discussed by Shankara Bhagavatpada in his Bhashya. So, one thing we have to understand very thoroughly, that is, the system of Shankaracharya firmly believes in the efficacy of only knowledge, realization. And Shankaracharya always holds the opinion that no karma, no other thing can be mixed up with jnana. So realization alone, that's what he says, realization alone is necessary for liberation. That means if we want to get rid of all these material clutches, material bondages, then we have to realize the reality outside. And he says the reality through and which is transcendent, immanent, is the Brahman. So the Brahman is not something to be known different. It is the self. This is the summum bonum of the Advaita philosophy. And in this discussion, he has come to this point: Vidya karma kartru nityatvat Vidya karma santana janita moksha nityatvam iti chet. So this is an argument. If somebody argues that Vidya karma kartru nityatvat, that means since the agent of the knowledge and the performance of deeds is eternal, moksha should also be eternal. That means one who gets the knowledge, the one who performs the deeds, the one is eternal. And therefore Vidya karma santana janita mokshasya, that means the liberation which is produced from the knowledge and the performance of deeds should also be eternal. Thus the argumenter connects both, saying that the moksha should be considered as eternal. Now Shankaracharya replies, na, it is not correct. Ganga srutovat kartrutvasya dukkha rupatvat. He says the agenthood, that means the state of being an agent or karta, like the flow of Ganga, the river Ganga, is always of the form of sorrow. It is not happiness. So kartrutva in any form is associated with sorrow. Kartrutva uparamecha moksha vichhedat. And if we accept that kind of agenthood which flows eternally like the flow of Ganga, then moksha vichhedat, there cannot be any moksha at all, because that kartrutva will continue eternally. So if we accept that type of kartrutva, there cannot be any liberation or salvation at all. This is the reply. Tasmat, so on account of these discussed fallacies, avidya kama karma upadana hetu nivrittau. So he defines the state of liberation. Adya Shankaracharya explains in clear terms what is moksha. He says avidya, kama, karma, these are the three. Upadana hetu, that means the base of these three. One is ignorance, kama is desire, and karma is of course performance of deeds. What are these three? That means whatever we do in the society, these are actually these three. One, we do several things. What is the reason behind our desire, our impressions, our implications, and what is further behind? That is avidya, or what we have seen already, this is spiritual ignorance. And avidya, kama, karma, upadana hetu, that means the material cause of all the three is this avidya only. And this avidya uparato, when it ceases to function, when it ceases to operate, or In another way, we can say that when this avidya ceases to influence that particular soul, then nivruttau swatmani avasthanam mokshaha. Shankaracharya explains that remaining in the form of pure self, swa atmani, that means the conditionless, pure, absolute self. So remaining in that particular state itself is called mokshaha, liberation. So what is liberation in Advaita? So he explains that when the material cause of all our ignorance, our deeds and our desires, so when it ceases, when it withdraws itself, not exerting any influence on the soul, then the soul remaining in its pure form is moksha, liberation. Because there is no attachment with the external world, there is no connection with the external world. So because of that, the soul remains as pure consciousness, and that pure consciousness cannot be other than the Brahman. Therefore, Atma cha Brahma, this is the final theory of Advaita. Swayam cha Atma Brahma. So the energy flowing through this body, within the body, that itself is the cosmic reality, that itself is the cosmic energy, and therefore Atma cha Brahma is the summum bonum of this philosophy. Tad vijnanat, that means on the realization of this fact, that is the self is Brahman. So when one realizes this by the strength of meditation, avidya nivrittihi, then his ignorance that doesn't show any influence on him. That means the avidya also disappears. Thus Brahma Vidyartha. So for this only the Upanishad is commenced here. The Upanishadic instruction is begun here. Brahma Vidya Artha Upanishad. This Upanishad Vidya is for the sake of that Brahma Vidya Artha, for the sake of that kind of knowledge of Brahman. Brahma Vidya means knowing the Brahman, knowledge of Brahman, and for that only this Upanishad is begun. That means the entire Upanishadic philosophy is aimed at producing in us that kind of realization by the strength of which we can get rid of the pangs of all this material suffering, and we can get for the salvation also. Upanishad Arabhyate. Thus this particular Upanishad is begun. Upanishad, what is the word? Shankara Bhagavad-pada explains further. Upanishad iti vidya uchyate. So what is this new word Upanishad? He says nothing, but the knowledge contained in this particular text itself is Upanishad. How? Tachhilinam garbha janma jaradi nishatanat tat avasadanadva brahmana hava upagnigamayitru trat upanishannam va asyam param shreyaha iti tadarthatvat granthopi Upanishad. See, he gives so many meanings here. How the particular word Upanishad derived. He gives the meanings here, etymological meanings. One, we must understand that the word Upanishad is derived from the root shad. Shad means to sit or remain. But shad has several meanings in the Sanskrit grammar. According to the Dhatu Path of Panini also, this root has been used in several senses. That is, as he has said, that is gati, avasadana, nishasana and visharana. So these are all the senses of the root shad. Upa and ni are the prefixes added to that. Now all put together, the word, the tvipratyanta word Upanishad is derived. What does it mean? Upa means near, ni completely, shad means to sit. In a way, it is actually sitting near the teacher completely with full devotion and full faith and receiving this kind of sacred knowledge from him. This is actually the Upanishad. But this is only the popular meaning. But Shankaracharya gets into the deeper meaning of that on the basis of etymology and explains that Tatshilinam, that means whoever is inclined to this particular knowledge, he Garbha Janma Jaradi Nishatanat. What does this knowledge do? So on knowing this particular theory of Upanishad, on knowing each concept of this Upanishad, what will happen to those people? Shankaracharya explains, this knowledge will remove many kinds of grief. One, Garbha, that means entering into the womb. Two, Janma, getting birth. And Jara, getting old age. And above all, the greatest fear is Mrityu or death. But this Upanishadic knowledge removes all this fear. That means on knowing the true nature of Brahman, of soul, of the entire world as a single unit, a person can get rid of all kinds of sufferings. And this is the basic aim of Upanishadic philosophy. Not only this, avasadhanadva, one is it attenuates or it annihilates. Both are there. That means it slackens those griefs, or it can destroy the entire grief. Or there is another meaning, Brahmanaha va upanigamayutrutvat. Brahmanaha va upanigamayutrutvat. Or this knowledge is that which can enable us reach the Brahman state or attain that state of Brahman. So since it takes us, it is called Upanishad. Another meaning, Upanishannam va asyam param shreyaha. Asyam Upanishadi param shreyaha Upanishannam. That means in this knowledge only our great auspiciousness, or we should say our great good, is Upanishannam, is post, or it is contained in this particular knowledge. So by knowing that reality with the help of this knowledge, we can get the highest bliss or highest good, that is called moksha. Tadardhatvat. So because this particular text is for the sake of that kind of knowledge, this text is also called Upanishad. So this is the meaning of Upanishad explained by Adi Shankaracharya on the basis of etymology. Now, following the tradition, with the Vedic tradition especially, Shankaracharya begins this text with the Shanti mantra. We know that all the Vedic mantras begin with particular Shanti mantra. Shanti mantra means that kind of invocatory or propitiatory verses or benedictory verses sometimes, by chanting with which we try to subdue all the physical and spiritual or divine obstructions. We can get rid of them and we can prepare ourselves for this great spiritual knowledge. Actually, this is the reason behind the Shanti mantra. So, when we start a particular spiritual discourse or spiritual teaching, spiritual instruction, we are supposed to begin that with the chanting of Vedic mantra, which is called Shanti mantra. And we suppose that when that particular Vedic instruction is begun with this Vedic chanting, it will not have any hindrances and it will complete successfully, and it will definitely give the fruit to the hearer and the learner also. And the fruit is proper knowledge of the Upanishadic ideology and proper assimilation of the ideology of the Upanishads. Not only that, proper realization. Because Anubhava avasanameva vidyayah phalam. Shankaracharya says elsewhere that our knowledge should mature into realization. That means the culminating point of all knowledge should be realization. And without experience, no knowledge is complete. That's what the philosophy says. And therefore, we should all get that kind of spiritual experience or the quietude within. And for that sake, the Upanishad begins here with the Shanti mantra. This is Krishna Yajurveda Shanti mantra. Om Shanno Mitrasham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Bruhaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Here, Om. This is the first utterance of the Vedic instruction. Omkarascha adhashabdascha dvavimau brahmanah pura kantham bhitva viniryatau tasmat mangalika ubhau. This is what the scriptures say. That means before the creation, the creator pondered over the cause and he uttered two things. One, Om, and two, Atha. So these are the first utterances of the creator. So therefore this Omkara, this is considered to be very, very auspicious. Not only that, this Omkara, A, U, Ma, this is actually a combination of three letters. A, U, Ma. These three coming together form this sound Om. Narayana Upanishad says Akara, Ukara, Makara iti tan ekatha samabharat tad etat omiti. And all the Upanishads, of course, give great importance to the utterance of this Omkara. They say that this Omkara is the entire world, and by the utterance of Omkara regularly, a person can directly get connected with the reality. That's why the Yoga Shastra also says that Klesha karma vipaka ashehi aparamrushtaha purusha visesha ishwaraha tasya vachakaha pranavaha. That means Om or Pranava. Om, this is called as Pranava also. So this Pranava is the direct word of the reality of the Lord, of the divine energy. That means a person utters Omkara means he is actually connecting himself with the reality, the cosmic reality and the cosmos outside. And this Omkara is the beginning of all sacred utterances in the Hindu religion. Now the benediction starts. Sham no mitraha. Mitra. There are 12 Aditya, Dwadash Aditya we say. Mitra is name of a particular god. And Mitraha Naha Sham. May the god called Mitra be auspicious to us. Sham means auspiciousness. Sham Varunaha. May the god Varuna be auspicious to us. Shamno Bhavatu Aryama. Aryaman is another name of Surya only, Aditya, sun god. So may this Aryaman be auspicious to us. Shamna Indro Bruhaspatihi. Indraha. Indra is lord of all gods. He is actually Parameshwara, and may this Indra be auspicious to us. Bruhaspatihi. May the teacher of gods Bruhaspati be auspicious to us. Shamno Vishnuhu Urukramaha. And may Lord Vishnu, who has long strides or who is all pervading, be auspicious to us. Then Namo Brahmane. My salutations, my namaskar are to Brahma. Namaste Vayo. O God Vayu or vital breath, my namaskaram to you. Tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi. O Vayudeva, that means God of air. You are the direct God. Tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi, and you are the direct Brahman. Tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami, and I call you the direct Brahman. Ratam vadishyami, I think it in the right form. Satyam vadishyami, and I put it in words in right form. Tan mamavatu, and may that reality protect me. Vaktaramavatu, may that reality protect the speaker, the utterer also. Avatu mam, may it protect me. avatu vaktaram. May it protect whoever chants this mantra. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. May there be quietness. May there be everywhere calmness. And this Shanti is repeated 3 times. Why? Because in our tradition we believe that suffering is of 3 types. One is physical, psychological, and the divine problems also, like earthquake, lightning, and other like hurricane, tufan, etc. So all these are the sufferings, and Shastra classifies them into 3 categories. One is Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, Adibhautika. And here the utterance of this particular Shanti, the word Shanti 3 times, is to get rid of these 3 kinds of sufferings. And after this Shanti mantra, now we see what Shankara Bhagavad-pada has to say about it. Sham means Sukham. Sham means auspiciousness. Sham means pleasure, joy, bliss. Pranavrittehe annascha abhimani devatatma mitraha. Shanno mitraha. Shankaracharya explains that this mitra is Pranavrittehe annascha abhimani devatatma. That means he is the preceding deity. Actually, he is the lord of particular Pranavritti. That means the vital breath called Prana, annascha, and of the daytime. That means the God presiding over these 2, the vital breath called Prana and the daytime, that is called Mitra. And may he give us that bliss, may he give us that pleasure. 2. Apanavrittehe ratrescha abhimani devatatma Varunaha. So this is Mitra, and other one is Varuna. Who is Varuna? So in the Vedic mythology we find that God Varuna is the presiding deity of Apana Vayu. That means the vital breath that goes down. Pranavritti that goes up. So when the vital breath goes up, it is called Prana, and Mitra is the presiding deity. And when that vital breath goes down below, it is called Apana, and Varuna is the deity. Ratrescha, similarly, this Varuna god is the presiding deity of the night time also. Chakshushi Adityecha Abhimani Aryama. Among the 12, Aditya also, Aryaman or Aryama is the god who is present in the right eye of all the beings. Chakshushi Aditya. So in the Chakshuraditya Vidya of Chandogya Upanishad also we find a reference to this, that whoever is there in the sun god is present in the right eye of all the beings, and that's why they are able to see, they are able to communicate with the universe outside. And the last mantra of Ishavasya Upanishad also says, Yo so Aditya Sohamasmi. This is actually identifying oneself in the higher spiritual level, that identifying oneself with the energy or power in the sun god. So this kind of identification is also mentioned in Chandogya Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad also, and now he is talking about that the energy present in the right eye of all the beings is called Aryama. And who is Indra? He says Bala. This is actually Idi Parameshwarye. So the root says that Indra means Parameshwara or Lord. Vachi Buddhaucha Brihaspatihi. So Bale Indraha, Vachi Buddhaucha Brihaspatihi. So in our speech, in our intellect, there is the god called Brihaspati. That's what Chandogya says. Brihati Nama Vak Brihatyav Patihi Brihaspatihi. So Brihati means speech, and Pati means Lord. Lord of speech, Brihati Pati, is summarily called in Upanishads like Brihaspati. So may he protect us. Vishnu. Vishnu, the word comes from the root Vishulru Vyapto. That means all pervading, omnipresent. That reality itself is called Vishnu. And Urukramaha, it is very fast. and at the same time it is present everywhere. That is the speed of that. Vistirana kramaha padayoho abhimani, and that God is the presiding deity of the pada or the legs. Evam adhyatma devataha sham naha bhavatu iti sarvatra anushangaha. So this kind of all gods should give us that happiness, that bliss. And if you connect the verb bhavatu with every word there, so shamno bhavatu, shamna indraha bhavatu, sham bruhaspatir bhavatu, etc. So everywhere the verbal form bhavatu should be supplied. Now the discussion continues here. Tasu hi sukhakrutsu. That means when all these gods or the divine powers are favorable to us, vidya shravana dharana upayogaha apratibandhena bhavishyanti. That means the vital breath moving upward should be comfortable, should be favorable. The vital breath going below, down, should be comfortable. And the God in the eyes should be favorable. The God in the speech, the God in the intellect. So all these should be convenient, should be favorable. So then only whatever we learn, that will be permanent and that will be fruitful. What does he say? Vidya shravana dharana upayogaha. That means all these gods should be favorable to us so as to so that we can get vidya grahana shravana dharana. So we can get the knowledge, we can hear it properly, and we can retain that particular sacred knowledge. And for this purpose only these gods are propitiated here. Apratibandhena bhavishyanti. How? Apratibandhena. That means without any obstacle. So they can be for our proper knowledge. Tat sukhakartrutvam prarthyate. And for this purpose only we pay our namaskara, salutations to all these divine powers around to give us that kind of comfort. Shamno bhavatu. That means may all these divine forces be comfortable for us. Now, Brahma vividishuna namaskara vandana kriye vayu vishaye Brahma vidyopasarga shantyartham kriyete. Brahma vividishuna. Vividishu means a person who desires to know. Brahma vividishuna means an aspirant of Brahman or a person who wants to know the Brahman. Namaskara vandana kriye, by him both the things like saluting to that and vandana, offering salutations or namaskara to that, all this vayu vishaye. So why does he salute the vayu deva or the vital breath? Why? Now we understand, a person who wants to know the Brahman, he offers his salutations to the Vayu Devata for a particular purpose. He says here, Brahma Vidya Upasarga Shantyartham. And this paying salutations to the Vayu Deva is to get rid of the obstacles, the hindrances in Brahma Vidya, in realizing the Brahman. Sarva Kriya Phalanam Tadadhinatvat Brahma Vayuhu. And just because all the transactions and all the fruits of our deeds depend on this vital breath, the vital breath is here called as Brahma. Tasmai Brahmane Namaha. Namaste Vayu. He said there in the Shanti Patha. So here that Vayu itself is regarded as the God and the Brahman, and the Brahma Vividishu, that means the learner here offers his salutations to that Brahma, that is called Vayu. Prahvi bhavam karomi. What is this Namaha? Namaha means Prahvi bhava, or bowing before that, or expressing that I am inferior to you, or accepting the superiority of the other person also, that is called Namaha. And here it is a way of offering our respect to the other person. Namaste. That means Tubhyam he Vayo Namaskaromi. That means hey Vayu Devata, I pay my salutation or offer my salutations to you. Paroksha Pratyakshabhyam Vayureva Abhidhiyate. So here the God referred is Vayu Devata only. Pratyaksha and Paroksha, directly or indirectly, it is the Vayu Devata, because the Vayu is present in our body in the form of the vital breath, because of which we are able to study the Upanishad, because of which only we are able to know that, and because of that the Vayu Devata is the Brahman directly and indirectly also. Kimcha, and moreover, Tvameva Chakshuhu Adi Apeksha Bahyam Sannikrishtam Avyavahitam Pratyaksham Brahmasi Yasmat Tasmat Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami. So he says, you alone are the external, internal, near and far. So that kind of God. You alone are that kind of God. Who is with me, who is outside, who is near, who is far. So the only God is Vayu Devata here. Compared to other, Chakshuradi, compared to the other senses like eyes, ears, etc., the closest God is the vital breath. The Yasmat, on account of this, Tasmat, Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami. Since you are the direct Brahman, O vital breath, I address you and I consider you as the Brahman. Ratam, that means Yadha Shastram, Yadha Kartavyam, Buddhau, Suparinishchitam Artham, Tadapi Tvat Adhinatvat Tvameva Vadishyami. That means Ritam Vadishyami, Satyam Vadishyami. What is the difference? Shankara Bhagavad-pada explains here. Ritam Vadishyami, that means as per the scriptures, and Yadha Kartavyam, as is my duty, as I am bound to do here. Buddhau Suparinishchitam Artham. So whatever I comprehended as reality outside, that the Vayu Devata alone is the Brahman here. Tadapi Tvat Adhinatvat. So that the comprehension of the reality also is dependent on you. Therefore, I regard you as the Brahman here. Satyam Vadishyami. Satyamiti, that is the expression of reality. So if Rutam is the experience of reality, Satyam should be the expression of reality. And here Satyam, the Yoga Bhashya also says Yadharthe Vang Manase Satyam. That means Yadharthe Vang and Manasa. So both are involved in this. Satyam means not just saying truth, but it is experiencing truth, feeling the truth and expressing the truth. Therefore both are important very here, and the Upanishadic philosophy uses a separate term for that, that is Ritam. Ritam Vadishyami, that means the matter of true experience is Rita, I tell that, and second Satyam Vadishyami, and the same I explain or express with my Vak Kayabhyam, with my speech and body. Sopi Tvadadhinaha Eva Sampadyaha. And because even this is dependent on you, the vital breath is the sole cause of all kinds of expression, and therefore Tvameva Satyam Vadishyami, and I tell you this truth. Tat Sarvatmakam Vayuvakyam Brahma Mayaiva Stutam Sat Mam Vidyarthinam Avatu Katham Vidya Samyojanena. This is very interesting here. That Sarvatmakam, and that omnipresent Vayuvakyam Brahma, the Brahman called Vayu or the air, vital breath, that Mayaiva Stutam Sat, being praised, being eulogized in this form by me now, Mam Vidyarthinam Vidya Samyojanena Avatu. May that vital breath protect me, the student, by connecting me with that particular sacred knowledge. Tadeva Brahma Vaktaram Acharyam Vaktrutva Samarthya Samyojanena Avatu. And may that vital breath protect the teacher also. Not only the student, the teacher also, by connecting him with that sacred knowledge so that he can expound that sacred knowledge. He can make a complete perfect exposition of that particular sacred knowledge of the Upanishad. And for this purpose, the student and the teacher both pay namaskaram to this Vayu Devata. Avatumam avatu vaktaram. So this is repeated here. May that vital energy protect both the student and the teacher. This is for the sake of high respect, regard for that Vayudevata. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So here we find the word Shanti being repeated 3 times. What is the reason? Shankara Bhagavad-pada explains that the suffering is of 3 types. One is Adhyatmika, that means physical or psychological. Adi Daivika, that means divine or natural. Adi Bhautika, that means physical. So the misery or grief or sorrow, suffering is of 3 types. Therefore, to alleviate each of these sufferings, the word Shanti is repeated 3 times. Thus, by repeating the word Shanti 3 times, we can get rid of 3 types of suffering. That is the idea behind the repetition of the word Shanti 3 times. Now this is the end of the first Anuvaka, and I told you in the beginning itself that there are 12 sections, Dwadasha Anuvaka, in the first part of Taittiriya Upanishad, and now we have come to the end of the first section. And in the first section we had seen what Shankara Bhagavad-pada had got to say about the Upanishad. He explained to us what is Upanishad. He explained to us the importance of Vidya only in comparison with karma, and he explained to us that karma of any type, Nitya, Naimittika, all this is of no use at all. And he has explained and established the concept that Advaita is the alone reality, and even if somebody says that moksha is also something produced, Shankara Bhagavad-pada explained to him that moksha should be eternal, and because Brahma itself is eternal, and realizing the self as Brahman alone is the liberation, that he explained. And further he explained to us that the Shanti mantra, that means the beginning mantra, also he explained to us the repetition of the word Shanti also has been fully explained, thoroughly explained to us. Now we come to the Dvitiya Anuvaka, and from this we will get into the Upanishadic, the pure Upanishadic text. Arthajnana pradhanatvat Upanishado granthapate yatnoparamo mabhut iti shikshadhyayah arabhyate. Arthajnana pradhanatvat Upanishadaha. See, Upanishad is Arthajnana pradhana. That means it gives importance to knowing the sense, knowing the meaning. So what about chanting this mantra, chanting the Upanishad? There are 2 things. One is mechanically chanting the Vedic scriptures, and other is knowing together. That means chanting and knowing the meaning of the mantras. 2 things are there. Now some people give importance to the mere chanting, and they say even by mere chanting we can get the result of the Upanishad. But Nirukta, and following the tradition of Nirukta, some other teachers also explain to us that Anagnaviva shushkedhaha natajvalati karhichit. That means not understanding the Vedic mantra, if a person repeats it, just chanting it, the mantra cannot give its full effect. It is like a dry wood or dry fuel kept at a place where there is no fire at all. If there is fire, it can burn it. But if there is no fire at all, there cannot be burning. Similarly here, if we don't know the meaning of the Vedas, Upanishads, then the mere chanting of Vedas or Upanishads, that cannot give the desired result. So we understand here that the sense is also important. Knowing the meaning is also very important. Arthajnana pradhanatvat Upanishadaha. So this is the important idea here. Granthapathe yatna uparamaha mabhut. So if we explain to the students also that the sense is very important, understanding the Upanishads is very important, then the student may desist from chanting the mantras or learning the mantras by heart, etc. So reading the Upanishad will be gone, will be lost. So let it be continued. Let the tradition of chanting mantras be continued. With that idea, Shikshadhyaya arabhyate. Now, the particular part of this Upanishad, Shikshadhyaya, the chapter on Shiksha, is begun. What is this? We understand the Taittiriya Upanishad mantra is now. Adha Shiksham vyakhyāsyāmaha varnaswaraha matrabalam samasantānaha ityukta shikshadhyayaha. Now, Shiksham vyakhyāsyāmaha. Now we shall expound the Shiksha. That means the phonetics, semantics, linguistics of this. What is that? Varnaha, the first one is letters. Swaraha, the second one is accent. Matra, that is the measurement. For balam, that is the effort. Sama, that is the spread. Santanaha, the equality and the spread, expansion of that. Iti, this way we find here Varna, Swara, Matra, Bala, Sama, Santana. 6 things, and they are called Shikshadhyayaha. So in brief, these 6 are called the Shikshadhyaya. That means a student is supposed to learn these 6 things so that he can chant the Vedic mantras perfectly, because in the Vedic tradition, utmost importance has been given to the proper utterance. We understand from the tradition that if we fail to utter the Vedic mantras properly, the mispronounced mantras will become each a weapon, a thunderbolt, and punish the misdoer. That means the person who utters the Vedic mantras in a wrong way will get bad result out of that, because the Vedic mantra does not give the desired sense. It will not give the proper expected meaning, and because of that only proper rules of utterance are to be maintained. And here he says the student should know the proper rules of utterance, and they are Varnaha, how many letters are there, and what kind of letters are to be uttered in particular place. Swaraha, and what kind of intonation or accent should be maintained. Matra, short, long, etc., circumflex, all these matra should be maintained. Balam, what kind of effort should be given in the utterance of a particular letter. That means whether it should be well stressed or lightly stressed. So all this should be understood. Sama, the equilibrium, the equanimity should be maintained. Santanaha, the spread of a letter. So all these should be thoroughly understood by a student of the Vedic text, so that he can properly understand the meaning and communicate to the other person, and not only that, he can further carry on this sacred tradition. And for that purpose, each student is supposed to learn the Vedic mantras directly from a teacher, so that he can understand the proper accent of each letter, proper effort with which each letter should be uttered, and then he can properly carry on this tradition. And now this is the first mantra of Taittiriya Upanishad after the Shanti mantra. Now what Shankara Bhagavad-pada explains, we'll see now. Shiksha. What is this Shiksha? Shikshate anaya iti varnadi uchcharana lakshanam. On the basis of this derivation, Shikshate anaya iti shiksha. That means it is a kind of knowledge, instruction, by which a student can know the proper utterance of Vedic mantras. So the instruction of proper utterance of Vedic mantras itself is called Shiksha. Or you can say Shikshante itiva Shiksha is equal to Varnadaya. Or you can say that the letters, the accent, intonation, all these are called Shiksha because they are taught in this. Shikshaiva Shiksha. And we observe a particular thing here in the beginning of the Vedic mantra, that the Vedic mantra contains the word Shiksha with a dirgha, whereas the word being used in the society is Shiksha. So which is to be followed? Shankara Bhagavad Pada explains that there is no difference at all. Shiksha or Shiksha both mean the same. Dairghyam, what about the long? Shiksha, that long tone. He says Chandasam, and that is the particular feature of Vedic language. That means it is only Vedic dirgha, not to be followed in the Laukika or mundane usage. Tam Shiksham Vyakhyasyaamaha. Now we shall make an exposition of this Shiksha. What is exposition? Vispashtam Asamantat Kathayishyamaha. Vispashtam, that means very explicitly, very thoroughly and very lucidly we shall expound this asamantat, thoroughly, this Shiksha. That means the proper utterance and the proper place of energy. And here Shankaracharya explains the word Vyakhyasyaamaha. He says Chakshingova Khyayad Ishtasya Vyang Purvasya Vyakta Vakkarmanaha Etad Rupam. Now he gives the grammatical information of the word Vyakhyasyaamaha. He says we are. Vyakhyasyaamaha, this word is derived from these components like we are, kya, and future tense. This is third person, that is the first person plural form of Chakshin Kya Dhatu with vi and a prefixes. Now he says Chakshinha Khyayad Ishtasya. That means the root Chakshi, that is the Kya here, that is optional, that Kya with vi ang purvasya, with two prefixes here, vi and a. Vi a kya, all together vyakya. Then in future tense vyakhyasya. Then in first person plural amaha. So all put together vyakyasyamaha. That means we shall now elucidate thoroughly this particular Shiksha, concept of utterance, in the Upanishads. Tatra. And now coming to the words in the mantra here, Varnaha, Swaraha, Matra, Balam, Sama, Santanaha. So he has given here three, that is 6 components. What are they? Shankara Bhagavad Pada explains Varnaha first. What is Varna? Letter. What is that? In Sanskrit we have letters like a, etc. Swaraha. What are the swara? The intonation, the accent. What are they? Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita. That means Udatta Swarita, Uchchair Udattaha. That means the upward accent and downward accent, and there is one circumflex or Swarita, that is balanced swara. Matra. What is matra? That is length of a letter, utterance of a letter. That is short, long and more than that. Balam. Balam is the effort. So when we utter letters, there is 2 kinds of effort. One internal and one is external. Internal, we push a particular letter, or we the particular place of articulation gets contracted or expanded. So all this is the internal one, and the place of utterance, opening the mouth, closing the mouth, this is the bhashya or the external effort. So this kind of effort is indicated here by the word balam. Then sama. Sama means samatva, that is the balanced state of utterance of letters. Varnanam madhyama vrittya ucharanam. So not overstressing that or not totally leaving that. It is actually uttering a particular letter with ease. So that kind of balanced utterance is called sama. Santanaha. Santanaha, that means expansion. What is expansion here? That is nothing but a letter getting absorbed or merged into the next letter. So this is called santana. Santana means mergence. Samhita. Samhita. Parasannikarashaha samhita. Varnanam Atishayitah Sannidhi. That is Samhita. Samhita here means the close position of two letters. Actually, in the context of linguistics or language, we find that the utterance of two letters without any gap, without any intervention, is called Samhita, that is Sandhi. But that kind of Samhita or that kind of close contact, connection, absorption is found in the world, in the universe also. That's what the Upanishad wants to tell us. And now we understand that all these Varna, Swara, Matra, Bala, Sama, Santana, all the 6 are not only found in the language, they are found outside in the universe also. And that Samhita is the very important point of this Upanishad, and the Upanishad seers are going to tell us, open our eyes to the reality outside in the form of Samhita. Iti eshahi shikshitavyaha arthaha. So actually it's not that the Upanishads are going to explain to us all the basics of a language. There are other texts also. Pratishakya texts are also there. Shiksha Grantha are also there. Gautama Shiksha, Naradiya Shiksha, Kaundinya Shiksha. So various Shiksha Grantha are available which can give us information of the proper tense of letters, etc. So the linguistic part of that is handled by those texts. What about the spiritual aspect of this particular Shiksha? Now, Taittiriya Upanishad is the lone Upanishad which deals with this particular concept. It finds all these within the universe, and it wants to tell us that the universe is seen, perceived as a unit, and everything is there within. Eshaha arthaha. And this is the thing to be taught in this Upanishad. Shiksha yasmin adhyaye soyam shiksha adhyayaha. So why is this particular chapter called as Shiksha Adhyaya? Because all these 6 components are explained in this part of the Upanishads. Therefore, this particular part is called Shiksha Adhyaya. Uktaha ityukta shiksha adhyayaha. So this is the last part of the mantra there, the first mantra. What is that? Uktaha iti upasamhararthaha. So this way we have completed the exposition of Shiksha. That's what Shankaracharya explains. And now this second Anuvaka, though it is the first mantra of the Taittiriya Upanishad, it explains to us to know the universe in a different way. Now our understanding, our perception and our response, all these of the universe outside, of the world outside, are rather conditioned by our impressions, instincts. Now we are naturally unable to understand the universe in this way. Now the first part of the Upanishad tries to open our eyes to this fact that the universe is situated in a different order. There is a cosmic design. There is a cosmic reality, and if we bury ourselves in our sorrow, in our limited thinking, narrow-mindedness, etc., so we will be deceived, deprived of the sacred knowledge. And that's why the Upanishad now tries to make us know the reality in the form of there is Samhita everywhere. In a language, especially in Sanskrit language, when 2 letters come together and become one, it is Samhita. But in the world also, in the universe also, 2 things come together and they form a particular reality, and it is called Samhita. Or in the terms of modern science also, we can take it in this way, that hydrogen 2 and oxygen, when they come together, they form water. And this water is a Samhita, and there are 2 things, these molecules and oxygen molecule also. And this way, a Samhita is intended to be elucidated here, intended to be propounded here, and that Samhita is the main subject matter of this Upanishad. And that's why the Taittiriya Upanishad, which consists of 3 parts, Shiksha and Ananda and Bhrigu. So the first part of this is called Shiksha Adhyaya, because this kind of Samhita, this kind of awareness is intended to be conveyed here, and we shall see that in the next class. Sahana bhavatu sahanau bhunaktu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om.